Well, I am Pastor Meredith Williams, and I serve here at Brandon Oaks for Virginia Lutheran Homes. So, want to think about tonight finding purpose and hope with senior ministry, senior adult ministry. So, I was expecting to have a co-host here, but we're going to make it on our own. It'll be fine. The first
We'll
thing,
help you. We'll help you.
all right, the first thing that I've noticed, I come from a background of youth ministry. And so coming in to do senior adult ministry, I see a lot of parallels. Yeah,
The reason for that.
don't have to. You know, I think youth and seniors are dealing with the same questions. I think my seniors here are looking at what's my identity now? I see head nods. Yes. What's my identity now that I've, moved out of the house that I was in for 40 years, or now that I've retired, or, that now that I have a change in my health or my independence? How does that change who I am? And how does that change whose I am? So I can absolutely tell you from the beginning, it doesn't change whose you are. That is the absolute hope. You are God's. You are God's child and beloved of Him. Now, who I am, there's a lot about that. That's how do I see myself? How do we react and respond to others who are dealing with a identity crisis? So I have some things to think about as we get into senior ministry. I think it can be fantastic to explore new identity, new calling, a new chapter in life. Calling doesn't have to be for your entire lifespan, unless you're looking at your calling as like parent. Your calling can be for a season, your calling can be for a short time period. God calls us to, different things. And so senior adult ministry can explore that. And it does it in a slightly different way than youth do. Youth is very fast paced and a lot of adrenaline and a lot of running around, which I love. Um, Senior adults can do maybe not so much running around, but we play and have fun. All right. So one of the questions that I have that we talk about is where do you get your energy from? We ask this for youth too. Do you get energized being around a group of people? Do you get energized having time to yourself and quiet?
I'm
These
an
are
extrovert.
yeah, extroverts and introverts, exactly.
Yeah.
And that also goes, do you work best in a group or do you need something individually to focus on? Sometimes I think it's really easy for us in the church to cater to the extroverts. They're in the group and they're happy and they're loud and they're answering all the questions, but we have to look at our introverts too. And we have to provide for them and provide for their discernment because this is what this is about. How do I discern what God is calling me to do and to be now that these specific things have changed in my life? Now, Jen graciously agreed to be a voice here, and I'm going to ask you to kind of chime in. What do you think?
Okay, one of the things that, so hi, everybody. I'm a full-time chaplain at a senior living community. Been doing this for 8 years now. One of the things that actually came up today in those groups, it's not just the introverts, the extroverts, how do we work? It's also being aware of those who are now solo in our midst. That was something that got brought up in my book club today, of that reminder that while we're facing health challenges, maybe mental cognition challenges, some people are also facing being solo after 40 or 50 years. And how do they not feel lost
Mhm.
in the mix of everything else that we're doing for senior ministries? And I know when I was in the parish, that was some of the issue that we had as well, is that sometimes our solo older adults felt lost and forgotten in the mix.
I would definitely agree with that. Something that you might not think about, and Jen, you've probably experienced, is our older adults who were solo have found new companions. And then everybody in the community has an opinion about that. Somebody, Sylvia.
Well, I was hometown pharmacist for 25 years in a town where the average age was 60 and over. And what I learned a couple of things that I think are important for seniors. Um, the one, of course, is all about constipation. That is certainly important to seniors. And as I get older, my philosophy is one should not know that one has a colon, but it will get your attention. But for adults, seniors in particular, it's important to acknowledge and recognize they have something to contribute. They know things.
Mhm.
And, I was thrilled when I first opened the store because, I thought I would be around all these wise people. I think wisdom doesn't come with age necessarily, but um, it's really important to all adults in learning for them to be respected for what they have to offer.
Absolutely. I would definitely agree with that. One thing that we say here is that when someone dies, a library closes. Your experiences, your wisdom, and I think that wisdom comes from experiences. I think it has nothing to do with age. Um, we have to find ways to share that with each other, and also to be able to share that with our families, because we're not always good at that. If you don't tell the family stories, your great 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 grandchildren may not know them. Um, so we also do storytelling workshops. How do I do storytelling? How do I save those stories? And then the question is, do I tell the ones that aren't so great, that don't have happy endings? It's not a failure if you learn something. So maybe these stories can teach. One thing we also talk about is that one of the spiritual gifts Paul forgot to mention was learning from other people's mistakes. And not everyone has the spiritual gift. But for those that do, you got to put your learning out there, the mistakes you made and what you learned. It's not just about, you're right, it's not just about extroverts and introverts. And getting senior adults together, we have a lot of the same needs that our youth do and that we have in middle adult years, but middle adults get so squished with jobs and kids and parents and all that. All of a sudden now as senior adults, we have some time. And with that comes freedom. So we're experiencing freedom from and freedom for. Freedom from what I've always done.
Um, I have read that many senior adults have trouble with depression because they've lost so much in their lives. And I'm dealing with my older brother who's 78. He was a doctor and he's lost his career, which he loved. He's lost his wife, and his kids live far away. And so he's experiencing great loss, and I worry about him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, loss is more than just a death. Loss is loss of change of career. Loss is change of health. Loss is change of independence. Loss is having to move in somewhere and I didn't want to leave my house. Um, so dealing with grief is also a big offering. There are a lot of new ways to deal with grief that we haven't used in the past. A lot of neuroscience that's come out in the last 10 years about connecting our analytical side of the brain with our creative side of the brain in dealing with grief. And so you see things like grief choir come about, which we've had here before, we may have again. You see, grief art therapy, ways that people build brain connections across so that they can process these feelings. Definitely depression and anxiety are part of senior living. And Jen,
Yeah, well, and one of the things I was going to say, especially in relation to what you just brought up, David, one of the things that we need to be aware of, if we're not already, is that the suicide rate among older adults is extremely high because of the loss of purpose and the loss of meaning. And so we also need to be tapped into, if we have concerns of how are we engaging them in the community, either as family or in the greater community. And I'm going to put a resource in the chat. A couple of years ago, Pastor Colette Brody Grund came up with the Grief Lectionary. It's 6 chapters, goes through the stages of grief in part. And so it's a great resource to have on hand and do. I've used it myself several times.
Um, the most likely and growing demographic suicide wise are men over 60. So when you're dealing with seniors and loss, that's a huge concern. If you're more interested in that, I'm really interested in the grief lectionary. Carl Trost, who has been a pastor and a chaplain in the military, it works specifically with suicide prevention. So he would be a great one to talk to. Yes, Sylvia.
2 things. What about what's your experience with loneliness and with alcoholism or drug abuse?
Loneliness is epidemic in any age group, especially post-pandemic when we all went inside and for some reason we didn't want to come back out and hang out with people anymore. So loneliness is epidemic across the board, and that's from younger kids all the way up to your seniors. Getting people involved in community is just really key, and finding purpose is really key to that. And so that's why asking all these identity questions, you know, really gets down to what am I going to do in this chapter of my life? Maybe my legs don't work so well anymore and I've got a scooter. What can I still do that reflects who I am in my being? And a lot of us as Americans specifically tie our identity to what we do. Yeah. Um, any more questions? Okay. Talk about freedom.
I was asking about alcoholism.
Oh, alcoholism also. Yes.
Mhm.
Alcoholism is high. Um, in this community, it's not as bad as in others that I've seen. Um, a lot of times, alcoholism and drug use is self-medicating because they don't want to go to the doctor and find out bad news. So I'll just deal with it myself. Sylvia.
Well, so many people spend older people spend time alone and nobody knows how much they drink.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's true. Especially if you're an addict or you've been hiding it all your life. We think about we've always done it this way. I mean, those are deadly words for a congregation. But I've always done it this way, but we've never done it this way. But those are words that we can have freedom from when we retire, when we become senior adults, because we don't have to do it how we've always done it. I mean, you don't have to get up and go to work every day, but you know what? You get to get up and go out the house and do something fun and do something with new purpose. It's not because you have to make money. So it's time to explore well, I've always wanted to, or if I, didn't have to have a career, I would have done this. I would have tried that out. So there's a lot of exploration and kind of this jack of all trades touching on lots of things so that people get a little taste and say, oh, well, that's kind of fun and interesting. I might want to look at that. In the same way we think about youth, what do you want to be when you grow up? How can you discern what's your future, what's your career, what God's calling you to do long term? Well, with seniors, our time frame's just a little different. And sometimes our use of knees is a little different. but it still allows us to play with, I don't have to be pleasing my boss. I can go and see where I find that joy. And there's always that's the freedom from side. The freedom for side is you play to, I never had time to do this, when I was a mom and when I had to take care of my parents. Um, what builds new relationships? And that, I think that's the real key. It's all about the relationships. How do we get our seniors to build relationships and make friends? One of the jokes that goes around the internet is one of the miracles of Jesus is that he had 12 adult friends. Making friends for adults is hard. We all knew how to do it as kids. Everybody was trying to do it at the same time. As adults, when we gotta, mow the grass and keep up the house and do the chores and go to work and come back and cook the dinner and deal with all the stuff, and then you just want to go, ah. Now senior adults have time to do some relationship building. And that can be really uplifting and life-giving and purpose-giving, building these new relationships. So how do we get senior adults in the position to do that? Some of it is doing some of the same things we do with youth, icebreakers, get people to introduce themselves to one another, talk to somebody other than the one you always sit next to at dinner, shuffle the deck and where you sit, and that kind of stuff.
So I'm curious, with the raise of hands, of how many of you at your faith community at your church have an intergenerational time that either your older adults, your senior citizens are confirmation mentors or youth group mentors, or you do intentional intergenerational ministry where you pair older adults with youth. I had it growing up. I didn't have it when I was a parish pastor.
You need to ask how many people have children in their churches.
There is that as well, but it's so maybe your child in your church is in their 30s or in their 40s, or sometimes I'm the youngest one in church and I'm 55. That doesn't it doesn't negate. So maybe you pair up with a school. Where my parents live in Texas, they are partnered with a school. Williamsburg Landing, where I work, is partnered with an elementary school for various activities, including having some of the kids sometimes are over there. We've got volunteers who go over there as either grandparents or tutors.
Yeah,
I think
the
you have to start thinking outside the box. Where
But
I
you
did my
also have to start thinking that our senior adults are a resource.
Mhm.
Just because we have a lot of gray hair in the pews does not mean this is a dying church.
Yeah.
Gray hair
Yeah.
in the pews means this is an experienced church. And who needs to benefit from experience? Our group here, much like yours, Jen, pairs with an elementary school. And we have, it's not like an adopt a grandparent situation. We have guys with ties and girls with pearls. And the men and women separate and do kind of mentoring. How to teach guys, teach the kids how to tie a tie, how to have a good handshake, how to make eye contact and talk with people, manners.
Yeah, I mean, I see in the question in the chat of do we know how? I don't think it matters if you know how to or not. It's a matter of doing it, and it's like the foster parent PSA. Anybody can do it. You don't have to know how. Um,
You'll learn
yeah,
how.
you
If you
learn
do it,
how.
you will learn.
You do it. You make a mistake. You learn. You ask questions. You know, my mom said she was going to wait until at one point. My mom's not old. She's in her 70s. And she years ago said she was going to wait until one of us came to visit her from 6,000 miles away to help her with her phone. And both my sister and I said, go to church, find a youth, hand your phone over and say, help. And that kid's going to be so excited not to be in Sunday school that morning and helping you. You could ask the high school kids to come in and help you with, how to use the computer, how to do the internet, how to do Instagram,
Streaming
how to do
on your TV.
TikTok.
Streaming on the TV. What we're doing here this summer is we're having reverse vacation Bible school where the kids and youth from local churches are coming to teach the classes to the seniors.
See, I didn't do that. I actually did vacation Bible school, and I was asked what the average age was, and I said 85.
Yeah.
So I did vacation Bible school for my senior adults, where we did everything except for sport games. We had like Kool-Aid and popcorn
Oh,
and freeze pops and crafts.
we have such a competitive chair volleyball team. Like other senior facilities come here and we have tournaments. And buddy, they are like talking trash and everything. Joel, tech issues on my end. I wanted to lift up that often those who have lived longer are frankly closer to their immortal moment and consider questions that chronologically younger folks as a group don't often consider because in youth we feel immortal without the need of resurrection. Easter faith is amazingly impacted by wisdom and questions and experiences that only come from those who face mortality. A group of often skewed to older ages, and these saints are absolutely a resource and bringers to our community. But kids are eager to hear also and to talk about these things, even though they feel immortal. They know grandma's not. And so they want to hear what grandmas are saying. How are other grandmas feeling? How maybe I have that conversation with my grandma? Would she even want to have it? Should I feel awkward about it? So it's still absolutely a resource to have, folks who have a different view on the other end of life. And they're a great human resource. Now, I had a whole spiel to follow, and we're not going to get to all of it. Um, a couple of biblical examples that we use when we're talking about here is repurposing and redirecting our gifts in life. We talk about Peter and Paul. Paul, obviously, his gift was zealousness and love of God. God redirected him in a timely manner to use that same zeal and work a different way. Peter, same thing. I mean, God help him. I mean, Peter was a bubba. He's like a lot of us. He means well, but he always sticks his foot in his mouth. But that makes him one that we can identify with. And God redirected him to use him in a different way too. Yes, absolutely. Anna and Simeon and Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus. The other ones we look at, Eli with Samuel, if you're talking an intergenerational ministry, and Elizabeth with Mary. You have the matriarch, Elizabeth in the family, the older woman, the wiser woman, the experienced woman, having a younger woman who's in a little bit of a different situation. But here you need your matriarch. You need your grandma when you're there. So I would encourage you to look at those kind of stories of journey and faith and building and redirecting. How do I change my life? I mean, please God, don't let me be raising a baby at 90 years old.
No one wants to be Sarah.
No, nobody wants to be Sarah. Except I kind of like Sarah. She's a little sassy and rebellious and a little snarky. And I can identify with that.
Meredith, did you have anything in your presentation about cognition and cognitive decline as we deal
Yeah,
with dementia?
dealing with dementia is a big thing. This is a moving target because no matter what we do, how good we are at caregiving, what vitamins or miracle pills we take, whatever accommodations we make, dementia and cognitive decline are progressive. They're going to keep going. So we change how we do things. We change what defines success. And that was one of the things I was going to say. We have to define success. We have to have realistic goals with our groups. I don't put my memory care group together with my independent living group unless they're doing something that memory care can excel at. We also have to see, how do I adapt myself and my events to the group of people that I'm with, to my resource. And like chair volleyball is our big thing. I do question ball with youth. I have a question ball for seniors. There's a lot of the same things on it. Chair volleyball, your tush stays in the chair, so there's not a lot of running around and falling down. That's a great set of games to do. And here's the other thing, focus on the positive. Don't tell me what we can't do because we're older and because our knees don't work the same and because we don't have how to work an iPhone. Tell me what we can do. What can we do? What gets us going? My partner likes to say, why do we keep wallowing in the tomb? Jesus rose from the grave. Get out of the tomb, and there is something in life that God is calling you to do. Okay, Kathy, before we close, Brandon Oaks, retirement with God, some of the best days of your life. I'd like to invite participants to contact me if they might like a guest speaker on this. Yes, Kathy Dudley. Where are you, Kathy?
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yes, I guess it was probably over a year ago now that I did the presentation at Brandon Oaks, Retirement with God, Some of the Best Days of Your Life, and just reminded the residents that attended that, we have so many gifts still at this age, and the opportunities to explore new things and share with people. Everything you all have said tonight has been right on target with what that presentation would also bring out. And I bring my own life story into the picture when I tell them about the 2 Christian books I've written for children that I never thought I would write a book in my retirement. And here there's been 2. And I just have, that's been my retirement joy now, is going different places and sharing them. So that's just one example, but just encouraging them to live life to the fullest. Life is not over. It's a new chapter now beginning. It's a new part of their story, a new part of their journey.
Thank you, Kathy. One last thing before we have to move on. I want to make sure I talk about accompaniment, this model of accompaniment. We talk a lot about mentorship, and that tends to put the relationship between me and somebody else at somebody's got all the experience and they're trying to teach me to be like them. Accompaniment, we're walking together. You're learning about me, I'm learning about you. There's not a directionality to the relationship. So senior adults are great companions to accompany one another and younger folks in life, just learning each other. Kathy talked about new hobbies. Getting a group of women together who all do something different with fiber arts. You got your knitters, your crocheters, your quilters, your seamstresses, and all talking about how that has impacted them over the years. And then they all want to try each other's stuff. And as we know, she who dies with the most yarn, needles, or fabric wins. Get the group of guys sitting down in the wood shop talking about how I learned to work wood with my dad or my grandpa, and we used to make stuff, and how that worked, and how I showed this to my grandson. Well, you work with this kind of wood, and I do that. And then they want to play with each other's stuff and learn new skills together, and it's fun. And yes, fiber arts are the best arts. Yes. So I am aware of time. Any other questions, comments, experiences to put in for the good of the whole? What are some of the fun things that we've done? I mean, thinking outside the box is definitely key. One of the things we're doing right now is world religions class, and we've paired up with our dining group and chef. So this month we're doing India and talking about the religions of India and how they're practiced there specifically. And then our last class at the end of the month will be a tasting of very authentic Indian food. Our chef is also making us chai tea, and then we have all the spices laid out where we can make our own chai tea spices to put in our tea bags. Still stuff you can do, seniors can do.
We're gonna do March Madness at ours. That's one thing. Where I was at in Iowa, we did a senior Olympics. It was the summer of Olympics, and we did a senior Olympics, and our wellness staff went around and we had our own TV station, and they went around and did live interviews of the residents as they were doing the activities, including our Alzheimer's neighborhood as well. They they had water gun fights. We had one summer where our staff were on the ground, and our third floor residents threw water balloons at them, and the goal was to get hit. We had one lady who had wicked aim.
Nice.
We've
Storytelling.
done trivia.
Yes.
Trivia. You could do Jeopardy.
Yep. Storytelling's kind of my thing. Last October, we did a series that we called Spirit, Spirits, and Spirit. So we looked at all what we call the spooky verses in the Bible and had our Bible study on that. And then at the end, we had a cocktail party and a professional ghost storyteller. Colleen's laughing. It was fun. Nobody parties at 4:30 like Brandon Oaks. I got a couple more minutes. Any other questions, responses? What are some things that you've done that have worked? What are some of our best practices?
Well, we have found in that our intergenerational things in that work best when we have like game nights where we bring all kinds of games and everybody participates.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. Another religion here at Brandon Oaks is bridge. So we have folks that would love to teach folks to play bridge. And they
Bingo.
teach residents and the grandkids.
Bingo's religion as well. Yeah, and don't forget, I mean, if you have residents or members who are residents somewhere, don't just go at Christmas time. Go year round.
Yeah.
To see them with your kids. Yeah, I mean, like this ice cream socials, Easter eggs, pumpkin carving.
Game
Lots
night.
of fun.
Yeah. Another big thing we've had to work on this past year, honestly, has been what do we do when we disagree with each other? And learning how to talk to each other and still have respect and respond instead of react. As living in the same building, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions. But I will say that I was very proud of them. We did not have to put the parental controls on the TVs this time.
We're not allowed to watch the news in our common areas anymore since Thanksgiving.
See, the last big election, they had to put the parental controls and the TVs would only play HGTV and the Weather Channel.
Ours are on sports.
Yeah. This time now we didn't have to put it on, so like the TVs have all the channels. We learned to be nice to one another. Which, as divisive as this past election was, I'm really happy.